welcome. I'm Lloyd, and this is the Dressing Gown Diary preview show of Week 3 of the Autumn 2017 Internationals. There was so much that went on, so many talking points from last weekend. I'll try and cover some of them off quite quickly. Firstly, Scotland. What a great performance from them. They pushed New Zealand all the way late at the death. If only Hogg could find a way to offload that. I mean, he was against probably if not the quickest player in rugby, and Bowden Barrett couldn't find a way through. But the way Hogg played during that game, Scotland really fronted up in the contact areas, took New Zealand apart, went aggressively at them, and New Zealand struggled at times on how to play. They were subdued. They were a little bit below themselves. I mean, anyone that watched the Dressing Gown Diary last week saw that I predicted that Scotland would get absolutely pummeled if they played like the way they did against Samoa. But they found a way to play differently. They were very aggressive in the contact areas. Hogg is an incredibly dangerous runner. It's such a shame he didn't get his opportunity to shine in the Lions. But again, Liam Williams did at fullback, so it's not all bad. But Scotland will be hoping to find a second win this year against Australia in their final game of the autumn. I think they might struggle a bit because I think Australia will feel a bit hard done by with what happened at Twickenham. We'll come on to that in a moment. But I think Scotland will struggle a little bit, and I fancy Australia to get over the line there. England, 36 against Australia, but that only tells a little part of the story. The game was in the balance. There was a disallowed try for Michael Hooper. There was Kurtley Beale having a brain fart when he could have just cleared the ball with Elliot Daly chasing through. And there was Stephen Moore in front of the player. The score's at 13-6. It would have made it 13-11 with a kickable conversion. Very, very tight. England got the rub of the green, but the 36 is probably a little bit too far. I mean, I'd walked out of the Principality Stadium and saw the replay of the try that went to the TMO that would have made it 13-13 and was thinking, you know what, Freddie's Flutter's coming in here. I'd predicted it and I'd actually backed Australia to win, but then obviously just got blown away. You can't win it all time. England looking for their last hit out. They're up against Samoa at Twickers. That'll just be a bit of a run through. Keep everyone fresh. Nothing too much of expected that from that. Ireland, they did very well at the weekend, or did they? They blooded a lot of players, brought new players in, but it showed, like Wales did, that the squad is perhaps a bit thinner than they thought. To only beat Fiji by 3 points, they'll be pretty annoyed about that. But they have got new players involved, so there are upsides with what's been going on. They'll be looking to finish on a high as well. They're playing against Fiji. It hasn't, their big game was the South Africa game, and they smashed them in week 1. So this is all about just keeping the momentum going that they can take into the Six Nations. The big game of the weekend. Well, let's not talk about the big game first. Let's talk about how my boys enjoyed their Cardiff experience. We caught up with the Dobsons. We caught up with the Edwards. We caught up with the Cullen-Jones. They had a great time. Not so much if you were sitting next to them and they went for wheeze about 20 times and also used the horns that Colin went, I can't believe you're buying that. When we did, horns constantly. But it was a lot of fun. The atmosphere was good for the first half, and Wales are trying to play this new expansive game and a much changed team. But the latter decisions, well, let's spend a bit of time just talking about this. So for those that didn't see it, Wales ended up, Thomas Francis was sin-binned, and because of an injury to the tight head prop, they ended up going for uncontested scrums in the last minute. It all looked a bit questionable, and Wales were shouting to high heavens when this happened to them in Paris in the last game of the Six Nations. But now it happened to for Wales, if you want to call it. It was a questionable decision. I think the IRB or World Rugby have to look at this rule intently. If there isn't a fit prop available, the player that's been sin-binned comes back on and someone else has to go off. The fact is that there is 14 players or 13 or 12 left on that pitch. So I don't think it should make any difference which player is actually sin-binned to avoid this uncontested scrum rubbish. It's not professional rugby. So moving on to the final game then of the weekend, Wales against New Zealand. Wales, Gatland fronting up against Hansen again. He will be hoping that he's got enough in the tank. Wales at the moment, you can get about 20 points on the handicap for them. It's massive margins. The betting markets are expecting New Zealand to really front off their close escape from Edinburgh. The way Wales are playing expansive rugby, can they close things down? Certainly with Rhys Webb back in the game, they're going to get quicker ball out. Hallam Amos on the wing, replacing the injured Liam Williams. And Scott Williams in at 13, replacing Jonathan Davis. I mean, Jonathan Davis is a massive loss. He is probably one of the form players that has been. He was the player of the tour in New Zealand for the Lions. So it's a massive loss. And obviously Warburton's missing, but Tipperick's on the bench. Faletau's in pretty good form. So Wales will be hopeful. But can it happen? It's a 10-1 bet on Wales beating New Zealand. As anyone will know, they haven't won against New Zealand since '53. It goes back miles. So heart says, go on Wales! But the head says it's going to be a tough ask. The Freddie's flutter for the weekend, though, is have a touch on Wales at 20 points. You can get on various bookmakers. But my last point as well is a tip of the hat to a good friend of mine who sadly was killed last Friday, Bertram Romberg. He's been a big part of my life over a 20-year period in Austria. I've spent many happy hours drinking beer with him, and he will be truly missed. He's a great mountain man, so tip of the hat to you, Bertram. R.I.P. Enjoy the weekend's rugby. This is Dressing Gown Diary over and out.